Finally got my hands on a dual hand grip for my FeiyuTech AK4500 gimbal, and I thought, let's make a video about it. So you might ask, why are you doing a video on a gimbal that's like 4 years old? I know there's newer gimbals out there. DJI just released a new RS3 something Pro. Then why are you talking about a gimbal that's 4 years old? Well, I just got this new hand grip. And I didn't buy the hand grip when I first bought the gimbal, so being out of stock and out of date, it took me a while to get my hands on a used one. But don't you know gimbals are the worst purchase any production company or filmmaker can make? They go out of date so quickly and you never recoup the value of it. Not me, I hold on to things forever. Even if there's something new that comes out, I don't go out and purchase the brand new thing. I will keep using this until it completely dies. Fair enough. So not only am I just going to throw this out there and show it to you, it's not going to be like a real review. I've taken this out of the box before and I've tested it out and used it a little bit. I haven't really put it to the test. Same thing with the gimbal. I haven't really put the gimbal to its maximum test. And today, that's what I'm going to do. A question you might ask me is, why did I purchase the FeiyuTech AK4500 versus the DJI or the Zethra crane? One of the biggest selling factors for me is because I was using a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K, and the payload on this was 4.6 kilograms or roughly 10 pounds. So that's a pretty large payload. I have other cameras out there that I would like to put onto this gimbal. I didn't want to make it a gimbal that is only going to carry a small DSLR or small mirrorless camera and not be able to have the option to use it on bigger cameras in the future. If I changed cameras or got a heavier camera, or maybe I bought a red Komodo, I didn't want to be locked into a gimbal that's going to be out of date when I changed my camera. So I kind of went with something that was a little bit of the maximum payload. Now I know today everybody's updated something like the RS3 Pro, I believe, that can take a maximum of 4.6 kilos now, or roughly 10 pounds. So now I'm kind of out of date. And that's why purchasing gimbals can be a nightmare, because you never get the value out of them. When you go back to resell them, nobody wants to buy old technology like that. Another deal breaker would be the lenses that I want to mount on that camera. And for me, I want to use cinema lenses. And I don't want to use the Rokinon or the Samyang lenses, because I'm not a super fan of the look of those lenses. So in my kit, I have a set of these compact primes. Zeiss compact primes, or the CP2. They're pretty hefty lens. They're not super heavy, but they're much heavier than your standard photography prime or even zoom. I would say, in reference, this is probably the same weight as a 24-70 Canon EF mount zoom. I know maybe the new RF mounts are a little bit lighter, but I have an EF mount camera, so we're going to compare to EF mount lenses. So it's roughly about the same weight and size. So I need a higher, like I said, if I change to a red Komodo or something like that, then I'm going to have a higher payload to do that. Now, I purchased this gimbal 2020. So at the time, it was kind of new tech. Now it's kind of not as much new tech. One of the other things that we're going to kind of look at today is the follow focus motor really capable of handling something like a cinema lens versus something lightweight like a photography lens. Now, the focus on this on a bigger lens, cinema lenses, are going to be a little bit heavier and harder to turn versus a photography lens. Photography lenses take very little to focus, and their motor autofocus, so they're meant to be very lightweight in the focus range versus this 360 cinema lens. So we're going to start out with the FeiyuTech motor control, the focus motor control, and see if it's able to handle this Zeiss Compact Prime. If not, then we have the option of switching over to the Tilta Nucleus Nano, which I know for sure this guy is a powerful motor and can definitely turn this big cinema lens. So I got everything mounted up here, and you might see a few weird things going on with my rig. Rigs are preference. It's just like camera cages are preference. Sometimes you have to sift through different parts, put them together, and see what really feels right to you. Weight, balance, all this stuff. Handles, shoulders, shoulder rigs, handheld rigs. It all just kind of depends. It's all a preference on yourself. Some of the weird things you might see going on is this V-mount plate up here. This guy. So I have a V-mount multi-volt adapter on here with a small rig, little 15mm rods, because this V-mount plate has to adapt to 15mm rods, and I've got that attached to one of these guys from the FeiyuTech Gimbal with the hot shoe, the 3/8, and the 1/4 screw hole. So I put that together because the multi-volts are going to power my monitor up here. Now this is a TimberCod DC80 4K monitor, and it is internal battery, but if I'm in the middle of shooting and I run out of battery power, I can just quick recharge it with the V-mount over there. I'm also running the camera off the V-mount, which gives me much longer shooting capability. And the way that this gimbal is with the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera, it's very hard to get the battery out. Like if you're using the LPE6 batteries on this, it's very difficult to get them out without unbalancing your gimbal, taking it off, and then switching the battery and put it back in. I've run into that countless times. So the best thing to do is just to go with the V-mount. Now I can shoot all day. The gimbal says it has like a 5-hour battery life, but if the gimbal has a 5-hour battery life and the camera only has a 45-minute battery life, it's best to go with the V-mount. So I got all that up there and able to charge my monitor and any other accessories that I need to charge on here. I talked before about maybe having to switch out to the Nucleus N, which is USB. It has a USB to USB, so yeah, USB 2. And over here on my V-mount is a USB plug-in, so I could just plug that in USB and power it that way. I can also power this through the gimbal. I have tested that. It will power through the gimbal. It will not work wirelessly with the knob here, but it will power through the gimbal, and then I add the Tilta knob onto the side. But I don't want to have too many knobs and functions over here because I'm not going to pan and tilt with this knob. It's very weird the way it looks when you pan and tilt with this. So I always use my knob purely for focus. And I don't want to have two knobs on either side and try to rig it up here because these things are not going to fit here or here. They're going to have to fit up here, which is a very weird position to put a knob up here. Unless you have an easy rig, which I'm gonna get later, get an easy rig to take the weight, and then you can just kind of use a knob wherever you want because something else is holding the weight for you. Right now, this is exactly what it is, a handheld guy, which means I have to do the hand holding. Nothing's gonna take the weight for me, quite yet. In a later video, we'll try something out different. So the thing now to do is to power this up. Now, it may not be perfectly balanced. It's looking kind of okay. But the main thing I want to do is I want to test the motor. Look at that. This is a very powerful follow focus motor if it can turn these Zeiss CP2 prime lenses. And it turns that with ease. Now, I'm sure most gimbals these days are going to do that. And if they don't, then like I said, you can always buy the Tilta Nucleus N, which is a great purchase because I know definitely it'll turn these. Some people asked before if it's as powerful enough to turn cinema lenses, and they are very powerful motors. So that's the build-up, that's the rig. I didn't get everything on there I wanted. The way the black magic sits on this guy is something I forgot because it doesn't, you have to offset it because the weird shape. It's bigger than every mirrorless camera out there, so it has a weird shape to it and you have to offset it. It can't be directly center on the lens, and that's gonna interfere with putting matte boxes and rods and rails on this. I'm pretty sure you could max this guy out, but not with the black magic. That would have to be something done with a red Komodo or the Panasonic S1H. But all in all, I'm super happy with this gimbal. It's actually worked well with me for the next couple years. And to be honest with you, it would probably be another 2 years, 3 years before I even decide to think about getting a DJI RS3 Pro used. Don't buy a new, it's a waste of money. Let somebody else waste that money and go out there and buy it used. Make sure you get a good one that's not gonna break on you. And if it does, maybe even DJI will replace it for you, or fix it at a cost for you. But this has been like pretty decent of a camera for me. Get an image there. I'm gonna do a slow turn. One of the more disappointing aspects of this is the HDMI cable. That will be something I have to work with, because I don't like when you're balancing and you have the HDMI cable in there. It kind of always pushes the balance off a little bit. But all in all, this is really doing what I want it to do. Like I said, one of the last missing pieces to this gimbal, and not really the gimbal, but the camera and the gimbal. I have a matte box that goes on rails to fit this, as you saw. It's just not a matte box I can use on the gimbal. And if you're using CP2 prime or CP3 or CP1 size primes or the Samyang Zines or whatever the Diesel film, whatever your cinema lens choice is, if you're using these, you're gonna have to have a clip-on matte box. Unless you got the red Komodo, you're probably gonna be okay. You can center that red Komodo right down the middle of this gimbal, put on the rods and rails, and put on the matte box like that. But my next purchase is gonna be that small rig, lightweight matte box that I can just clip onto this, and I still have plenty of room to balance this off front to back. I even got the sun shade on it and the SSD on top of it, helping balance it all from front to back like that. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, be a friend to the channel, support the links below, buy a t-shirt, or just keep watching. And always remember, keep shooting.